So this is me again, and I'm Nathara at CrowSong Lodge, and so I've done like a lot of videos on my channel so far, but I don't think I've addressed like the big question of the whole like what even is a psychic thing. So let's go ahead and do that. I have it's kind of at the top of my, I have a list. It's kind of at the top of my list, and I was like, oh, I still haven't done that apparently, so I'm doing that now. So what is a psychic? It is commonly held that we have our 5 physical senses, vision, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling being touch, not emotions. And so those are our 5 physical senses, and psychics can perceive things or gain information or data outside of those 5 senses, information that they otherwise could not gain or would not have access to easily through the normal means of acquiring it. So if you gain information outside of the normal physical means, you're probably a psychic. Now, don't split hairs here. Don't go all like rules lawyery on me. Using the internet is not going to make you a psychic, but if you just know things and you have no way of knowing them, then that's the thing that's going to count. Now, if we look at the dictionary, that's what I'm looking at when I look over here. It's not really the dictionary, it's the definition on Google, which comes from American Heritage Dictionary, just in case you were wondering what dictionary Google uses for these things. It is relating to or denoting faculties or phenomenon that are apparently inexplicable by natural laws, especially involving telepathy or clairvoyance, or relating to the soul or mind. So the word psychic comes from, and I looked that up for you too, and I made a note over here, it comes from Greek. It comes all the way down from there, and it refers to, is the word psychikos. My Greek is terrible, so I just butchered that for you. And it refers to the mind, the mental state, or the soul or breath. And there's even a goddess named Psyche, who is kind of the personification of the human soul. So we get that word from the Greeks, and it traveled down through the ages, and it kind of took on a lot of meanings, and then it went through Latin. And the first person to use it in the context we use it today was a French spiritualist by the name of Camille Flammarion, and then it came into English usage in the 1870s, rather. So it's kind of a relatively recent word, but the phenomenon is as old as humanity is. But it's really kind of a very general thing. So like if you don't gain information through those 5 senses, then it's pretty much psychic information. Or through your own deduction or something, but you get those deductions through premises that you've gathered, hopefully through physical evidence, theoretically. You know how it gets weird after a while. So the common psychic abilities that you have out there are, we're going to start with your 5 clairs, and the 5 clairs, and that's clair, I'll put it on the screen for you. The clairs are C-L-A-I-R, and that is a Latin root meaning clear. Go figure. They correspond to the 5 senses. So you have clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. These are people who are able to receive information as visions that they wouldn't normally be able to access. So if you were to ask me what is my dad doing right now, and I thought about it for a second, and then I saw him microwaving popcorn in my mind, that I would be a clairvoyant. Then there's clairaudience, which is clear hearing. So if I heard him making popcorn but didn't see it, then I would be a clairaudient. Clairsentient is somebody who senses things like feeling, but not like emotions, but like physical sensations. So this would be it's a harder one for people, but they feel things tactily. So if they could feel like him getting up, the feeling of motion, maybe he feels hungry, that would be a clairsentient. Clairaudience is taste. They'd be like, he's eating popcorn right now. And clairolfactance, I probably butchered that word, is somebody who smells things. These are people who are like, I smell a perfume right now. It smells like orchids to me. Do you know somebody who wears that kind of perfume? Those people are clairolfactants. That normally somebody isn't just like one ability, and we'll talk about that later. Then you have claircognizance. Even though it's a clair, it doesn't really correspond to the 5 senses. This is clear knowing, and that's when you kind of just know something. You don't perceive it as an experience. So this is where it's usually described as like remembering. Like if you were to ask someone, what's my dad up to right now? And they're like, well, yeah, he's making popcorn right now. Like they didn't have an experience to gain that information. It's just something they knew. Then there's mediumship. This is also known as after-death communication. It's a new term that people are using for it today, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's talking to dead folk. Recence of death, it doesn't really matter. They could be millennia old, or it could be yesterday. It doesn't really matter. Dead is dead. Precognition is knowing things before they happen. So this is people who like know there's going to be an earthquake tomorrow or whatever. Psychokinesis would be the ability to move objects. So that's what that means. Psycho is the mind again, like psychics. And kinesis is kinetic, it's movement. So that's moving things with your mind without touching them or without causing movement anywhere in order to affect that object physically. Remote viewing is being able to perceive another location mentally. A lot of times this is done by coordinates or by being given some kind of physical direction where to go. So it'd be like, I need you to go to such and such address, go into the door to the first room on the left and tell me what you see. And then we have empathy and telepathy. Those I group them together. Empathy is where you do feel other people's emotions as if they were your own usually, or sometimes you can feel these bodily. So if someone's really angry, you might get a stomach ache. If someone's really happy, you might feel really lightheaded, or if they're really happy, you might feel really happy, or if they're really angry, you might feel really angry. Sometimes this is really confusing, and the same is true of telepathy. This is being able to read somebody's mind, and a lot of times people think that they're just really, really good at predicting what people say. Sometimes they just think people are really, really predictable and say the same predictable shit all the time. Or they think they're having original thoughts, but they're really just picking up the thoughts from everyone around them. And a lot of times these people just annoyingly finish your sentences a lot. So those two abilities are kind of known for not realizing they even have them. They just have really weird quirks. Divination in general is using external tools to gain information, like as a focus. So this would be like a crystal ball or a mirror or tarot cards or a pendulum or a dowsing rod or something like this. It's using some kind of focus in order to concentrate your abilities to gain information you wouldn't normally have access to. Not the internet, you guys. Then the next two that are really common are channeling and automatic writing. Hey, so I'm back. My battery on my camera ran out, so I am continuing the video I started from before. So sorry about that. I obviously lost my train of thought, and I'm going to be attempting to pick it up again, but no guarantees because y'all know how I am. Anyway, so we were talking about the major psychic abilities last time I was talking to my phone, and we left off on channeling and automatic writing. And I wanted to say about channeling that a lot of people give it a bad reputation because it's really closely associated with possession, which is kind of a scary thing, especially if you've ever seen movies at all. But it doesn't have to be that way. Channeling is more like when you receive messages from pretty much anyone else. It's kind of like having somebody who does not currently have a body, or at least isn't hanging out in it, telling you something and then you just repeat it. Some people paraphrase, some people say it word for word, and then some people kind of give the other person access to say it through their mouth, and how much access is given can vary a lot, to like just the words to like the entire body. And so there's a lot of different variations on that one, and a lot of permissions involved and stuff. And a lot of people have this idea that the person who does the channeling doesn't get to have a lot of say in that, and that's complete bunkus. And I'm going to come back to this in a separate video because I have a lot of opinions on the matter, you know, like I usually do. Automatic writing is really similar, but instead of speaking it out loud, it is a written form, and it used to be considered really separately, but now people would just kind of usually lump them into the same thing. It's just channeling. But automatic writing used to specifically be when you allowed someone who wasn't currently in a body to use your hand to write messages, which then kind of graduated to allowing them to type messages on a typewriter and then eventually on a computer keyboard. And now it just kind of lumped in with channeling because we do a lot of normal communication through keyboards anyway. So you can channel things and say them out loud, or you can channel them and type them or write them, or however it's happy, but however it makes you happy. But basically it's just passing a message through you like a TV channel. So that's channeling and automatic writing. And then I wanted to talk about mediumship. Mediumship, I've heard a new term lately. I don't think it's really caught on very much, and it's like after death communication. And I think that's supposed to get rid of a lot of the stigma with the word mediumship, or make it sound more scientific. But whatever term makes you happier is totally fine. But mediumship is the older one that people tend to recognize more. And this is, you know, speaking with people who used to have a body but aren't currently in one. So they used to be alive and now they're dead. And that's done in a lot of different ways. You can use any of the abilities we've already discussed in order to do that. So you can use tarot cards or other divination methods to do it. You can use empathy or claircognizance or telepathy or clairvoyance or channeling or whatever works for you to talk to the dead people, and it totally counts as mediumship. Once upon a time this actually used to be called necromancy, but the fantasy and horror world kind of got a hold of that word, and now it's gone in a totally different direction. But once upon a time mediumship was necromancy, but now it's mediumship instead, and now becoming after death communication. But that's just talking to dead people, and that isn't as scary as it sounds or looks in horror movies. It's pretty much just like chit-chatting with people who aren't in bodies. That's really, it's as easy as chit-chatting with somebody else who is human, with all the same pitfalls. Just because they're dead doesn't mean they're honest or that they're accurate. So you gotta watch out for those things with them. Not that they're necessarily all going to be malicious, they're just people like other people are. People are people are people. That's the way it is. And then the last one I wanted to talk about on my list was psychometry, which is kind of an interesting skill. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it because it's not a skill I've ever developed. And basically that is being able to read the information that is tied to an object. So it's kind of like if you hold an object that has been places, like say I have this ring. If I were to pass it to someone who had psychometry, they could take this ring and then read the information that this ring has experienced. So anything that, any event it has been around for, any conversation it has heard during the time that I had it, or the person who had it before me, or the person who had it before them, or the person who made it, all the way back through the item's history. Somebody with psychometry could access that information by touching or holding or sometimes just seeing the ring itself. So this isn't the same thing as like a haunted object, because that has like a memory impression or a spirit attached to it. But this is more like a data imprint on the ring, or sometimes people experience it as like the ring itself has a personality, like animism, where the ring itself has a personality and can be spoken to. So like I said, I'm not a skill I've totally developed, so I'm not going to be the expert on that one, but that's my understanding of how that one works. It's a pretty cool thing, and I've seen some really interesting things done with it, and I've also seen some, you know, not as interesting things done with it. But anyway, so those are the like major categories of psychic skills that you're going to see running around out there, and like there's a whole ton of other skills as well that are smaller, lesser known, or just other names for variations on skills. The people really like to niche down or over specify or name different variations and stuff, so you're going to see a lot of other words, but these are the main ones that people are going to be talking about out there. So I hope that this has I hope that this video proves useful. So I apologize for the break in the video and the weird awkwardness that's going to maybe cause. And again, this is Nathara at CrowSong Lodge, and if you want to support me, I always appreciate that. Check out the links below for my website where you can get readings, or you can access my Ko-fi link or my Patreon link. And I will see you guys in future videos. Probably? I think so. Maybe. Yes. Anyway, I'm gonna babble. Bye!